Mr. and Mrs. Thistles. This is Carla, and I am here again in my kitchen for a very special recipe. Today I am making spinach and artichoke lasagna. This is very much based on the version that my mom makes every year that we eat every Easter. It is very special. We love it. We eat it that one day and only that day. With that in mind, I wanted to create a more terrestrial version that you and me could achieve and feel really, really great about. There's a beautiful creamy bechamel that's loaded with Parmesan. There's garlicky artichokes. There's melty mozzarella. You build it, you bake it. All of the people want to come around and partake in it. No, it is not my mother's, but that's okay. It's yours and it's mine. The first step that I'm gonna take is actually a deviation from the original recipe, which is that I'm using canned artichokes. The idea of using a canned artichoke is so blasphemous that it's almost insane that I'm doing it. In my family, my dad starts working on the artichokes 2 days before we're gonna have the lasagna. And he gets himself set up with a cutting board and a paring knife and some sort of sports that he enjoys, and he bangs it out. But we don't all have a Frank Lalli, and that's why I'm using canned artichokes. Depending on the size of the artichoke that comes out of the can, you might cut it into fourths or sixths, but you want pretty thin slices. So now that these are cut into their little pieces, they're just gonna hang out on this paper towel. It's gonna absorb, they're gonna dry out so that by the time I'm ready to saute them, I'll be able to get them nice and brown. The next step is to make the Besciamella or the bechamel or the white sauce. To do that, I've got 4 cups of milk heating up in the back over here. And I'm gonna flavor that with star anise, because I like it, and a bay leaf, because I like it, and some salt and pepper. If you don't have star anise in the house and a bay leaf, just season the milk with salt and pepper. It's totally fine. That's gonna warm up in the back. Here in the front, I'm gonna make a roux. A roux is a mixture of fat and flour that you cook together. This is unsalted butter. For this recipe, I want a blonde roux, which is gonna have like the maximum amount of thickening power left in the flour, and it's also going to have kind of the mildest, butteriest flavor as well. So I've got beautiful foaming butter, not taking on any color, and I'm gonna add the flour all at once and use a whisk to combine. So while you're making the bechamel, you really want to be attentive the entire time. I'm gonna season this as well. And it's hard to tell the color because when you're looking at this foaming mixture of butter and flour, it's like very yellowy, it's very buttery, and what we're looking for is this blonde color over medium heat. This should take about 3 minutes. I think we're there. I'm gonna add some of the milk mixture to start. And I just wanna whisk this in and make sure that it's smooth. It's gonna look super thick at the beginning, like, oh no, it's too much flour. But when you add the rest, it's gonna be the right consistency. You don't have to worry about the bay leaf or that star anise. They're gonna stay in the entire time. And once it's simmering, you wanna be whisking almost constantly. About 6 or 8 minutes in, definitely a lot thicker. And if you run your finger over the back, like that line is not filling in, but it's still not clinging quite enough. So I'm gonna keep going. I want to describe the texture in a way that everyone can understand. And even to myself, it's elusive. We might be saying that it's wheat paste. It might be cream of mushroom soup for you. It could be the texture of like a really nice gel bubble bath pouring. So at this point, I'm going to add 1/3 of the total parm mixture. I'm gonna put about 1/3 of a cup into the bechamel. So I'm back to my whisk to make sure that the parm is really incorporated and it totally melts. Oh my God. It's parm sauce. I just have a wide, kind of shallow bowl. I want this to cool down. And I'm also at the very end here grating in some nutmeg. I'm just gonna whisk that in. And before I let it chill, I'm gonna put plastic wrap over the top. And you actually want to push the plastic directly against the surface of the sauce, and that's gonna prevent it from drying out or forming a skin on top when it cools. This is one of the great feelings, the warm bechamel covered in plastic. would encourage you to pause at this point and feel how fun that feels. With this pan over about medium, I just want to make sure the pan is hot and the oil is hot before I add the artichokes. They're so delicate, they're already cooked, that if the artichoke leaves stick, they'll start to tear. I'm keeping it very, very blonde for the first phase because the artichokes are gonna go in and they need their cook time, and we want the garlicky oil, but we don't want the blackened garlic. Everybody's sliding around. That's like really what you wanna see. So once they're coated in oil, kind of get them in a one layer. I'm not going for browning on all sides. I just really want this first side that's face down, that cut side, to take on some color. I'm gonna season also with some crushed red chili flake. You can skip this if you want to. All right, so now the goal and the challenge is to be patient and let this cook. Okay, I see some little browned edges. So again, kind of just loosen everybody up. We're pretty much there. I don't want to cook these any longer to risk having burnt garlic. Done. And I'm just gonna spread them out to cool down. And while they're still hot, I'm gonna grate some lemon zest over. Just about half of this lemon. I'm not going totally nuts, but that's done. Same pan, gonna go back in 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. This is about 1 bunch, which weighed around 10 ounces of mature spinach, and just going in that hot oil. And as it wilts, it makes space for another handful. I also don't like to season the spinach until it's wilted, because if you season every layer, it can over-concentrate and just get really, really salty. And I want to just keep moving everybody around until the pan dries out again. And it's more like an oil layer than it is this kind of creamy mixture of oil and spinach water. All right, right before these start to stick, take them out. And like, there's really no like water dripping off of these, a little bit of oil. I'm gonna spread it out to cool off as well. That's just gonna take maybe 3 minutes fanning. Now that I have cool spinach, I'm just gonna chop it. And I'm not going like completely bananas here, but I do want small pieces. Go in there. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in slightly controversial choice. There's no mozzarella in the original version that my mom makes. However, I wanted there to be mozzarella in this version. I'm not using low skim mozzarella, which is the kind of mozzarella that gives you that incredible kind of a cheese pull situation. And that's because it just doesn't really have the flavor payoff as a fresh salted mozzarella. So I'm gonna cut this into 1-inch pieces. Another controversial decision. No, I am not grating the mozzarella. And the reason I'm not grating it is because I really hate grating mozzarella. And I just didn't want to do it. You could obviously pack these things up in small separate containers or bowls, or you could just live your kitchen organization fantasy and your ingredient organization fantasy. And my ingredient fantasy involves a waterproof layer in between these things. Make sure your vegetables are cool before you put the mozzarella into the center trough, because you don't want it to melt. I mean, come on, is that satisfying for anybody else? So what I have in here is one of those cutie little 15-ounce cans of whole peeled tomato, and I just blended that up with a hand blender. And to that, I'm gonna add a garlic clove that I'm smashing just to release the garlic flavor, but I wanna be able to fish this out later. So dropping that in, a couple tablespoons of olive oil, some kosher salt, some pepper. So I'm seasoning this today. It's gonna sit overnight. It's gonna get flavored, obviously, by the pepper, the salt, and the garlic flavor is gonna kind of infuse into it as well. And it'll just taste really good. Day 1, phase 1, recap. We have a bechamel, a bechamella that is mounted with parm. We have garlicky artichokes, we have beautiful cubed mozz, and our delicious spinach that has been cooked and chopped. I have my seasoned tomato passata that is going to be used in the final layer, and that's it. See you tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. We've never done this before on the channel. We're really going to come back tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Today is lasagna day. This is all about mix the fillings, assemble, and bake. I'm gonna parboil my lasagna sheets. So I'm just dropping these in, and you just wanna make sure they're not sticking to each other. I'm gonna set the timer for 4 minutes, but it's more about the texture of them than it is about exactly how many minutes have gone by. So this is the texture that you're looking for. They're nice and bendy, but they're still like quite firm. And then they can go into their freezing cold bath. So as soon as you can reach into the bowl and they're no longer warm or hot to the touch, they can go onto the grease baking sheet. I'm just gonna turn them over a couple times so they're oiled all around. So I'm gonna grease my baking dish with butter. It's gonna take about a teaspoon or so of butter. I wanna show what the bechamel looks like on day 2 when it's had a chance to cool down. It's very firm. You can see like how thick it is. The bechamel is gonna get split between the layers. So I'm gonna set it aside so I can kind of keep track of how much we have to start and how much I'm gonna use. This is gonna be the artichoke layer. It's about a cup. The parm, like the bechamel, was also divided into 3 parts. So I'm gonna use another third of it here. It's okay to eyeball, but you can get out your 3rd cup measure if you want to. So there's our artichokes, cold, out of the fridge from yesterday. And I'm gonna cut up a little bit of basil to put in this layer as well. Anyone who's been with me for a while, you already know that architecture and layering is very complicated for me. So every time I'm working on anything that has layers, unless I draw a schematic of it, I'm gonna screw it up. So I have my schematic, and it is how I like figured out how to do the layers in this recipe, but I also need to look at it in order to remember what I'm doing next. And I'm just gonna kind of fold this together. All right, so the first layer is butter. We got that. Layer number 2 is pasta. And the way I'm gonna do the first layer is almost make like a little pasta cradle for the fillings. And what I love about that is the pasta sheets kind of come up the side of the dish and get crispy. Next layer is artichokes. So this entire amount is going on this layer. And I know it looks a little bit loose, but a lot of what's in this mixture is egg, and that's gonna set up while it's baking. Pasta. This time I'm going lengthwise for the middle layer. I'm gonna use one of the guys that broke here in the middle because no one's gonna be able to tell. Next layer, spinach. And I'm gonna put the chopped cooked spinach into that same bowl and combine with another cup of bechamel. The spinach layer doesn't have egg. I wanted this layer to kind of be like cream spinach instead of like the filling of a ravioli was not what I was going for. I wanted it to feel like really luscious and creamy in that layer. So I'm just gonna spoon it in and then spread it out. So the goal is to get it as even as you can, but also make sure you get into the corners. So now on top of the spinach is gonna be the mozzarella. And I just wanna kind of evenly disperse, again, making sure that some get to the edge. So you can go around the edge first and then fill in the middle. For this layer, you're gonna go flush against one edge of the dish. And then this was broken, but it ends up being perfect. Goes right across. And now the rest of the bechamel goes on top of this. So whatever's left in your measuring cup is what goes on top. Just using the spatula, just gently. You don't wanna like move your noodles around too much, but they're pretty glued down. Now we've got our passata. Remember that there's a whole clove of garlic in there. And now I'm just gonna spoon this over using about half of it because I don't want like a super heavy tomato layer. I just want that little bit of contrast, that bright like flavor, kind of cutting through some of the richness. And now the rest of the parm goes on top. So I'm just trying to get it evenly back and forth. And I'm double wrapping in parchment and foil because I have both. If you only have foil in the house, just oil the foil and put that on top. Pop it onto a foil lined or parchment lined rimmed baking sheet. And then it's time to bake. Set a timer for 45 minutes and we'll be back to check that it's hot in the middle. 45 minutes later. The best way to check is a cake tester or a paring knife, and you want to make sure the center is hot. It's hot. It's not molten fire hellscape. It doesn't need to be lava, it just needs to be hot. So now the cover comes off, and on this next bake, it's going back for 15 or 20. Lasagna takeout time. She's a beauty. Let's talk about it. We have active boublage. We have a gorgeous browning. We have crispy corners. We have melted cheese. It's just epic and gorgeous. One problem, you cannot cut into it right now. Lasagna needs to rest. It needs to pull itself back together. It needs to not be so runny. And as soon as that happens, we're gonna cut into this for the beautiful reveal. Well, this is exciting. Lasagna for 8 for 1. So right in the middle of this crispy sheet of lasagna. Pretty good, pretty happy. Okay, we might have cut into this a little early. Just some of the filling from neighboring corner piece escaped. Before I dig in, I just want to point out the delightfulness that is the outer edge. Going in. I got a mozzarella pocket. Oh, she's so delicate. It's a large piece, but we believe in me. Distinctness of layers has been preserved. It is intact. You get the spinach layer. You get the artichoke layer. The noodles are very al dente, which is really lovely and rare. In a lot of lasagnas, it's just mushy and it's hard to get around it. If you're gonna make something that is not your mom's, then make it yours. This lasagna is like an homage. It makes you think about the original in a way that makes you love the original, but as you are having the one that is making you think of the other one, you're also really happy with the one you have. And shouldn't that be how we are every day? Just be happy with the day that you have, and maybe it will remind you of another day that was a great day. Same for lasagna.